Hey guys, what's up? Unrested here, and I am out here today in the park with minimal equipment. Literally my tiny little microphone, which I should turn. There we go. Now it's going to go through the left and right speaker when you listen to it. And a green bench. And that's it. I guess a camera too, and a tripod to make sure the camera sits up straight while I talk, but minimal equipment, like I said. I've always got kind of a travel pack I keep around. Microphone, a small tripod, and maybe a little bit of stuff to keep things in place, such as like clips and stuff like that, if I need like a microphone in place or I need a camera in place. Anyway, this is a more serious setting because I wanted to cover a more serious topic. As you've seen recently, some of my JFAQs have been based around humor and stuff, but there's some I don't think are appropriate for humor. Some I think you should jump back into my very old way, my old school way, you might even say, of doing JFAQ, where I'm just out here in a park talking. Um, and today's topic is about bullying. Now, this is something I've covered in Dark Side of Japan before, but it's also something I feel I need to cover in JFAQ as far as how it relates to Japan, how it relates to my viewers too, because if you ever take a look at my analytics, most of my viewers actually are in high school, so they are most likely experiencing bullying as they watch these videos. I don't mean literally like as they're watching it, I mean during the time that these videos are coming out. If you are being bullying if you are being bullied right now as you're watching this, whoever's bullying you right next to you, stop it right there. Um, so what I want to talk about is just how it happens in Japan. What are a lot of the things that revolve around bullying here, and how they may relate also to your Western life or whatever country you're in. You may still be in China, which is, I guess still East Asia, but how they affect you, how they relate to your situation, ways that you can combat it, or at least fight it or ignore it or get yourself away from it, and also to clear up the fact that it is definitely not something that is long lasting. You will eventually reach a point where you will graduate from the bullying, or your bullies will graduate or disappear or head a different path in life. And you may run into them again, but oftentimes, especially when it comes to high school bullying, you'll find that they have evolved beyond bullying, that they do see the error of their ways as time goes on. Anyway, let's move on and first just talk about a little bit about Japan. Bullying in Japan usually rotates around a couple different things. Either it is a form of dominance by someone who wants to be popular by putting down someone in the class that's an easy pick. They want to use them to gain their popularity. It could be based around sports. For example, someone may be part of a sports club because there isn't really a lot of like eliminations as far as the way a lot of Western schools work, where they have like in tryouts. Usually, if you can come out for the sport, you can usually join it. At least at the high schools I'm used to in Osaka, there may be more competitive parts of Japan. For example, Tokyo may have a limit on how many people they'll take into sports because the population's even denser there. Um, but that means anybody and anyone can join the sports, and they may not always be the best at that sport. In fact, they may be the worst person on the team, and they make for easy pickings for anybody who might be a bully on that team. Now, a good coach or a good, I guess, team leader, which you might have on your team, would stand up for that person and would stop the bullying, but that does not happen. In a recent poll I saw just in a Western census taken, was that only 4% of teachers think that bullying is actually wrong and will step in to actually do something. Um, and there was something like a huge percentage of course, girls are bullied through school, but actually the higher percentage is boys that are bullied. And the main reason a lot of us boys, although I am now a man, are bullied is because we're kind of just told to like roll with the punches. We're told to just take it, um, which can be pretty harsh, especially with the fact that we're oftentimes absolutely cemented to a gender role as being the tough guys, which we are not 100% all the time tough guys, nor do we want to be tough all the time. Um, of course, around our peers, a lot of guys will pretend to be as tough as they can possibly be because that's the cool thing to do, especially when you're growing up. To have your masculinity questioned is, I guess some would say, very endangering to your manhood as you grow. Um, but when it is challenged, oftentimes, instead of breaking down and actually showing the true emotion that someone feels during that point, we were kind of put on the line and have to like grin and bear it, you know, like I said, roll with the punches. And this is even more so true in the culture in Japan. In Japan, you've got to realize a lot of their social awareness is where America was in the 1950s. So men are supposed to be hardcore men out here, although that is starting to change slowly, um, as we've seen with the grass-eating man, the man who is the herbivore, who is headed the way of being more open with his feelings and letting people know. But it is still very common that you have this kind of samurai outlook on how men should be. And some of you may think like, oh, I thought samurais were gone from Japan. That's bullshit. That doesn't exist anymore. You're right. It doesn't. It doesn't. But the ethos of it carries through time. And if you didn't already know, the way a samurai would act would be to show a complete stoic face, a complete stoic sense of emotion through their entire life. Like even if you go back and watch recreations of Edo era samurai stories, or even shows now like Neko Samurai, where you would think that character would be the goofy version of a samurai, even he constantly puts on a stoic face, because that's really how samurai were. They were meant to always be this unchangeable, unbreakable face of stoicism. And they were looked up to as almost like superheroes within their town. So every man wanted to be like them. They were like the badasses of their town. Everyone looked up to them and was like, damn, they're so cool. You know, they're the only people who are allowed to carry swords. I want to be tough like them. So when you're growing up and you're a boy and you see these badasses with swords, of course you try to emulate them. Well, then a lot of boys then try to emulate their fathers who emulated these samurai. And over time that it's still carried through. And so still to look up to one's father and to try and act like them. You do see these boys attempt to be very stoic and stay tough no matter what, never talk about their emotions. Even to this day, one of the main reasons I don't really have a lot of close Japanese guy friends is because I'm very open about talking about my emotions, as you can usually see with most of these videos that I do. And for the most part, Japanese guys will not talk about things that bother them, their emotions, goals in life, motivation, anything that they would consider flowery or dreamy, or anything that is getting even slightly a skosh into the emotional. And that's okay. That's their prerogative, and that's the way they were raised. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with how they control their life, control their emotions. They've been taught one way and it works for them. But for me, emotionally, I feel like to be close to a friend, I have to be able to open up to them and feel as though they are a shoulder I can cry on, I can lean on, they can be there to try and give me advice if they've been through the same type of hard times, and vice versa. When they're on hard times, when they're going through a rough spot, they can call on me and I can do the best that I possibly can as far as giving them advice as to how I handle that situation. Now, of course, there is times where you or a friend has gone through a rough situation and you've never experienced it. For example, maybe it's a close death in the family or some sort of tragic event that you would have never ever imagined could possibly happen. That doesn't mean you just turn away and say, well, I've never had to deal with that in my life. No reason to come to me and cry to me about it. An ear that will listen is one of the best things to let a person heal. It can be one of the most cathartic experiences to just be an ear that allows a person to vent on their emotions. And that's what kind of goes into bullying, I think, in Japan, is these boys and these girls who are put through these rigorous tests to get into the next level of their schooling are under a lot of pressure to ace these tests. They're under a lot of pressure in the sports they play to be the top of their sports. They're under a lot of pressure to be the best of the best within their very own school. And that does not quit on through elementary school all the way up through junior high school, high school. I think it kind of lets off at college. I think college, everyone starts to evolve emotionally a little bit. As we know, the mind actually fully develops as we become an adult, and we start to make connections not only with synapses, but actual emotional triggers that allow us to realize I'm being too harsh on this person. But getting back to the things that give us stress back in high school, junior high school, elementary school, Japan, and I'm not comparing this one to America, I'm just saying what their stressors are. It's the entrance exams to get into the next level, the next level. It's the qualifications of what level you are in the class, because you got to remember, here in Japan they literally post what level you are in the class. If you go to juku, which is cram school, after school study to ace these tests that let you get into the school of your choice, you're literally posted how good you are doing at that school. So not only are other kids looking at that, but their parents are looking at that too. So maybe the kid's not even a bully, but if the parent is, you're doubly screwed, right? You got the parent telling the kid, haha, look how much better you are than this guy. That kid thinks, hey, I'm so much awesomer than this kid in the class. Look how high up on the list I am. And they'll spread the bullying themselves, not even quite knowing what they're doing because it's been egged on by the parent. So that's a lot of the stress that Japanese kids suffer here in Japan. Now, you yourself may suffer different types of things. For example, I myself went through bullying one point in my life where I moved to Missouri for just 2 years of my life. Now, again, I don't want to like target Missouri as a horrible place to live. I'm sure there is great people in great places and an awesome, community there in Missouri that is very nice. This is just my experience of when I went there, what I went through. St. Louis, Missouri, I lived in. I went to school in a place called Chesterfield. At this school called Incarnate Word. That was the name of it. It was a Catholic school, and the kids there were the meanest kids I had ever met in my life. They had already formed their cliques long before I'd ever started school there, so I was not accepted into any of these cliques. And these kids would find anything and everything to make fun of you for. If you even were speaking and slightly mispronounced a word wrong, they would just tear you apart. It got to a point there, I remember, where I was made fun of so much that I just completely shut down talking completely. I just stopped even forming sentences or speaking to anyone because it felt like almost anything that could possibly come out of my mouth would be ripped apart, judged, or bullied. I was never super great at sports. Later in life I found out cross country and track and field were my big thing. I was good at running. But then I still wasn't good at basketball. I definitely wasn't good at hockey, having lived in Florida most of my life. And those kids were really into hockey, so anytime we'd have to play that for high school gym class, they would totally make fun of me. They'd make fun of me for how bad I was at basketball, baseball, kickball, anything. I was really bad at sports. I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't. My hand-eye coordination was crap. And I got bullied for that all the time because these kids were hardcore into sports. And there's nothing wrong with sports. Obviously, I played sports when I got into high school. But those kids used that again as another thing to target and bully. Along with my speech or how I talked or anything, even that I had like a Florida accent, which I don't really even notice, but apparently to them I had a Florida accent. That might not actually be true. It may just be part of their bullying. And this may be what you too may have experienced or are experiencing now in your school. And let me just give you some personal advice. As someone who's 35 now, gone through all these different years of school, grown up, become an adult, and now witnessed bullying again from the view of an adult. And made it through all that bullying during that time. Number one, it's going to end. No matter what, it's going to end. Okay, there is an end in sight. When high school ends, bullying usually does not continue. You may face a little bit more of it in your workplace, maybe at college, but it will never be as bad as it is in high school. That is when it is absolutely at its worst. So do know that the zenith of bullying that you are at now is on a decline. You have reached the top when you're in high school, and usually there's a decline to go down, and then it'll either fade completely out of your life, and you'll also start to learn how to make close friends. You'll understand those people that are loyal, those people that are close, those people who actually care are the people you want to keep close to you. And those kids that bully you, what's eventually going to happen to them is, number one, either they're going to evolve and finally realize, holy shit, I've been an asshole my whole life. I need to calm the fuck down, treat people like humans, and start being introspective with my actions and looking at what I do and say to people. All right? Number two, if they continue to be a bully their whole life, they will end up sad and alone. And some people do this. Some people never want to come to terms with the fact that they are a fucking asshole. And those people will be the fucking asshole. Because let me tell you, when you grow up and you're an adult, it's not cool to be a bully anymore. It's not cool to just pick on people for things like speech or their physical abilities. Other adults that are mature and grown up look at that and think, wow, you are ignorant and cruel and sadistic. I do not want to be close to you, and that person will end up sad and alone. So know that if they do continue to act like that later, they will be the sad and lonely ones. Maybe you are now because of the bullying, but that will be them in the future. Number three, they'll come back and apologize. They'll realize just how evil they were. And I've even done it myself. There was people I bullied. And, I might not have been as extreme as some of my bullies, but you don't think about it sometimes. Sometimes you're doing it too because it puts you higher up on an echelon of friends, right? You don't think about it at the time, but you're suddenly given a quick chance and you make a quick blurt that makes fun of somebody. And at the time you're thinking, well, I'm not following this guy around and fucking, punching him and kicking him and picking on him and everything. Yeah, but you had an opportunity to say something nice or something mean, and you chose something mean. And that's something I've done myself before. And if I've ever run into those people again, or even just seen them on Facebook or anything, I apologize. And I say, look, I was a real jerk. You may not even remember the time when I did this, but I want to say I'm sorry and know that, you're a good person. This is what I truly think of you. And don't ever let anyone say something like that to you. And, I hope you can forgive me. So that's how there is an end in sight for bullying. Anyway, that's my little, JFAQ/ramble on bullying today. If you have any questions or you'd like to share your own experience with bullying with me, please feel free to do so in the comments below. If you want to PM me personally with an experience that you've had and want to ask for a little bit of advice, I'd be happy to try and help you out with the situation because, as I've said, friends help friends. I consider my viewers my friends. I like to help them. I do the best I can with what I can. And if that's something you're experiencing right now, I'd like to try and do my best to help you. Put it in the comments below if you're okay with sharing it with all of us, and I'd try to comment there as well. Until next time, I'm Unrested. If you like what you saw here today, like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share. If you want to see more, better, greater, and more motivated videos out there, share these, and I'll have more time and more places to share them with you. Have a great one. I'm Unrested.